Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this maths video. We're going to continue this topic on surds by looking at division of surds. So let's look at some examples. Now we're going to simplify these in the way that we simplify fractions by looking for common factors. So we can write root 18 as root 18 times 1 and root 72 as root 18 times 4, breaking them down into a pair of factors. And then we can cancel these off, root 18 and root 18. So we're left with root 1 over root 4. The square root of 1 is 1, so that cancels down to 1 upon 2. Second one, in fact, before we go on to that, we could have started with root 18 if we had written that as root 9 times root 2 and written root 72 as root 9 times root 8, which is perfectly correct. Then we could cancel off root 9 and we would have root 2 over root 8. But then that cancels further. We could write root 2 as root 2 times root 1 over root 2 times root 4. And the root 2 cancels. So we're left with the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. The square root of 1 is 1 and the square root of 4 is 2. So that cancels down to a half. Let's look at the second example. Root 6 we can write as root 6 times root 1 and root 54 as root 6 times root 9. Cancelling off these common factors, we're left with square root of 1 over the square root of 9. The square root of 1 is just 1 and root 9 is 3, so that cancels down to 1/3. And here, square root of 24 over 6 is equal to the square root of 24 over the square root of 6, which cancels down to root 4 over 1, which is 2. Or we could have simplified that 24 over 6 to 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Okay, let's look at some more examples. Square root of 180 over the square root of 2. Exactly the same principle. We can write that as root 2 times root 90 over root 2 times root 1. We're left with root 90 over 1, which is the square root of 90. Now we're not finished there because we can simplify this like we did in the first surds lesson. Root 90, can you think of two numbers that multiply together, one of which is a perfect square? Remember, one of them has to be a perfect square. So root 9 times 90, the square root of 9 is 3, so that's 3 root 10. So there was a wee extra bit there. Now the square root of 0.05, now remember we could write that as 5 over 100. So that's the square root of 5 over the square root of 100. Root 5 times root 1 over root 5 times root 20. And that cancels down to 1 over root 20. When we're at that stage, we want to ask ourselves, can we simplify that root 20? Two numbers that multiply together to give 20, one of which is a perfect square. So that simplifies to 1 over 2 root 5. Lastly, 5 over root 50. Now the root 50 we can simplify as root 25 times root 2. 5 over 5 times root 2, which simplifies to 1 over root 2. Now this is a very difficult topic. You might have to watch this video 2 or 3 times, but persist with it and then try the exercise. Thank you.